We just got this cookbook from Callebaut, and they're Mona Lisa chocolates, and it's all recipes of ruby chocolate. So when I first opened it up to look at it, what struck me was it is a very chefy cookbook because everything is in grams and ounces, or grams and milliliters and the like. And there is no cups, no teaspoons, no tablespoons. Everything is measured very precisely, including the eggs, which are measured by weight. So we are going to see if we can take this very chefy restaurant and as everyday average home cooks make these fabu donuts just like they show in here. So it may work, it may fail, we're not sure, but we're going to find out together. Okay, I will read off the list of ingredients. If it works, I'll type it up and have Jessica post it on our website. If it doesn't work, well, at least you'll know what the ingredients are and you can try it at home. So it's 750 grams of flour. Doesn't say what type, and we know there's pastry flour, cake flour, all-purpose flour, hickory flour, and artisan flour. So we're going to use the hickory flour since this has yeast in it. 300 grams of sugar, 300 grams of muscovado sugar, which is a dark brown sugar, 7 grams of sea salt, 20 grams of yeast, and again, because this is a very chefy recipe, I have got actual live yeast, and we'll try using that and see how that goes for us. 400 grams of eggs, which works out to be just about a dozen eggs, and 250 grams of butter. So it sounds like it should taste really good if it works. So let's find out if it's going to work. This feels a little bit like being on one of those cooking shows on TV, because the only instructions for putting all of these things together is beat together in a stand mixer with paddles until dough becomes stretchy. So there's no order to put the ingredients in, just those are my only instructions. So we're going to use the Bosch, we're going to use the dough hook because this will eventually turn into a dough, and I will start with my wet ingredients first. So all of my eggs, which is a substantial amount of eggs. And then I will put I think I'll put my white sugar in, my muscovado sugar, and my yeast. And then I'm just going to mix it for a couple of minutes to get that all worked in together. All right, this actually has turned into really quite a lovely dough. I will just dump it out onto the counter. And this is supposed to make 25 donuts that are 75 grams a piece. So when we go to form the donuts, we'll scale all the dough and see if indeed we can get 25 donuts that are 75 grams a piece. And voila, our dough. It does seem like a nice soft dough. I was really surprised without any water or milk in it that I was sure we were going to have a very dry dough, but it's actually quite nice. It feels less like dough and more like a pie pastry, but it should make fantastic donuts. So, stay. There we go. So I'll just give it a few more kneads on the board, and then I will find a bowl to put it in, cover it, and put it in the back fridge. Ooh, very excited to see how this is going to turn out. All right, now we're ready to make the glaze. So I have a pot, and the list of ingredients are 75 grams of water, 150 grams of caster sugar, 150 grams of liquid glucose, 100 grams of sweetened condensed milk, which incidentally is about a half a can of sweetened condensed milk, 150 grams of ruby couverture chocolate, 10 grams of cocoa butter, 6 grams of beetroot powder, and 70 grams of gelatin powder, and 57 grams of water. So let's see if we can make this work. Again, following the less than informative instructions in this book, it says heat the first 5 ingredients to 74 degrees Celsius. So I have my trusty thermal pop, and I will turn it on, and hopefully it'll work. There we go. And I will start adding my ingredients. So first one is 75 grams of water. I should grab a spatula to clean out all my sticky cups. 150 grams of castor sugar, which is just a fine sugar. So if all you had was table sugar, don't worry about it. I would use that. Make sure this stays on. There we go. Mix that in with the water. 150 grams of glucose, which is a liquid sugar, well, or a syrup sugar, as the case may be. Close enough. And then the 150 grams of sweetened condensed milk. There can be nothing bad about sweetened condensed milk. And what have I missed? I have missed nothing. Look at me go. So now, water, castor sugar, glucose, sweetened condensed milk. Excellent. Looks like 5 ingredients, but they broke the word milk onto another line. So now we just have to get this to 74 degrees. And it doesn't look like it's going to take all that long. We're already at 53. You don't want to touch the bottom of your temperature gauge to the bottom of the pot, because then it'll measure the temperature of the bottom of the pot and not the temperature of your mixture. And if you don't have a digital one, if you have one that just has a dial reader, you will find a little dot on it somewhere, and that is the level which, if you can, you should submerge it to get a good reading. Okay. And, well, we're getting there. Still in the mid-60s. Still younger than my friend Tony. For those of you who don't know, Tony is our regular cameraman when we do these video shoots, as opposed to Jess, who does all our Zoom classes and social media for us. So. And still creeping up in the 60s. So the next set of instructions say heat and add to sugar mixture. So that would be the remaining ingredients. So I might bust out another pot here, which will annoy the living daylights out of Tony, because I will bounce out a frame, and he loves it when I do that. So it makes editing so much fun. And we will heat on the other burner the remaining 4 ingredients. Hey, so we have the ruby chocolate, which is untempered chocolate. We have the beetroot powder, which we only add for color. It doesn't add any flavor, so it's not going to give your chocolate a musty flavor. A little water and a little gelatin. The first thing I'll do actually is mix the gelatin and water together, because generally chocolate and water do not go. So let's mix those 2 things together. Ooh, and this is going to heat up on me really fast. So we are at, see, a watched pot will, there we go. So we will turn this down as it is rapidly approaching a little too hot. So just going to get a little whisk and whisk up the sweetened condensed milk in there. And whisking. There we go, and double check the temperature on that. Yes, it's creeped up into the 80s on me, so that didn't take long at all. All right, another pot. There we go. Put it on this burner. We've got the gelatin all mixed up. You leave gelatin sit, it will sort of settle to the bottom of your container and feel like you're trying to stir a rock. So there we go, put that in. We will add the chocolate, which seems so weird, and the beetroot powder. And we will heat this up and try to get it to all meld together. The thing about the ruby chocolate is if you use it without the beetroot powder, it turns kind of a weird shade of purpley gray. So you always want to put a little beetroot powder in it or some kind of reddish coloring. Because the ruby chocolate is a natural product, sticking to beetroot powder keeps it all natural as opposed to adding food coloring, which may come from a chemical source. So, ooh, it is actually coming together quite nicely. I was really anticipating that it would, I thought I needed cocoa butter. I do need 10 grams of cocoa butter, which I don't have out. Yeah. Yes, I know, breaking all the rules again. So I will scale this really quickly, or I will tear this really quickly. There we go. As I may have said on videos before, having a little bit of cocoa butter in your kitchen is always really handy if you're doing fish, like scallops or shrimp. Dipping them in a little bit of cocoa butter before you put them in a frying pan will, way too hot, will get you a nice sear on the outside of your scallop or shrimp really, really quickly. Additionally, if you want to do a steak and you want to get a really nice caramelization on the outside of your steak, a little bit of cocoa butter on your steak with your seasoning will help you get that caramelization really, really quickly. There we go. Turn it down to a proper temperature. And I will bring this one back over here. So here you can see we have just sort of a caramel-y type mixture. And I will double check the temperature on it once again, because the whole notion of this is you're sort of tempering the ruby chocolate, I am assuming. And creeping into the 60s. There we go, in the 70s, we'll take that. All right, so now I will add this into the rest of the ganache mixture. And much to my surprise, we did not seize the chocolate by putting it in water, so sometimes it'll work. Any of you who were here at our in-person chocolate class last Christmas will remember me trying to seize chocolate to show the class, and only to discover to my frustration that night, no matter how much water I added to it, it would not seize. So usually, water and chocolate are not friends. Again, I'm just going to use the whisk And I think I'm going to throw that spatula out. It's getting a little sad and floppy. And you have a nice, really quite red ganache. So this, again, I'll leave it in the pot, put the lid on it, and put it in the cooler with the donut dough. And tomorrow we should be able to glaze and make fabulous looking donuts. Welcome back to day 2 of donut making. As you can see, our dough has raised nicely in the fridge. It's been a little more than 12 hours, but the dough still managed to raise nicely. Let's see if we can turn it out of here nicely. There we go. And now, it actually feels way lighter than I thought it was going to. Now we'll try to divide it into 25 balls of dough so that we can start forming our donuts. Because this is a little big, I will divide it into, manageable sections, or relatively manageable sections. My recipe tells me they should be 75 grams a piece, so I will turn on my scale. Initially, when you start scaling your bread, or scaling anything, it seems weird, and it seems like you'll never get it right. About 10 in, you probably got it down pat. So that's about 70, this one's 73 grams, but that's close enough. I'll just form it into a ball and I'll leave it there for a little while, and I will just keep going with my too little, too big. Oh, somewhere in between. It's a tricky thing. There we go. Oop. 10 short. 2, a little big. So the closer you get them all to the same weight, the closer your donuts will be to pretty much even. So, and the dough itself feels denser than a bread dough, and I'm going to guess that once we throw it in the deep fryer, it will fluff up quite nicely. So there's 4. Right on the money. All right, there's several ways to make your donuts. I've chosen to form my donuts the same way I would have made a bagel, by making a ball as smoothly as I can, sticking my fingers through the middle, and then rounding it out. If I were to do it again, I'd probably roll out the whole plate of dough and use a donut cutter. But in the attempt to get 25 donuts at 75 grams a piece, I chose to do it this way. Didn't wind up with 25 donuts, only wound up with, maybe we're going to have 18, which is okay. We'll see how that goes. So, one more, and then we can send them to the deep fryer to see how they'll turn out. You can smell the fact that I used the live yeast. It has a whole different smell to it than either the traditional yeast or the rapid rise yeast. So, and that maybe is why I didn't get 25 donuts. I only got 18. Oh, 19, I guess. But they were all 75 grams, so I am confident that had enough stuff. All right. Now we'll deep fry them and see how that goes. So we've fried most of our donuts now. We're just going to fry the last 2 so you can see it go on. You'll notice that some of the donuts are really, really dark, and that's because the oil I put in the fryer was brand new. So things will get golden really quickly, but they'll still be raw on the inside. And these donuts certainly don't look like the donuts in the picture, but you know what? They still taste pretty good. And no one will doubt that they are homemade. So now that the oil is a little older, it's taking things longer to brown. So I can probably get a nice golden color on these donuts as opposed to a darker amber color like on that one. Like I said, if I were going to do this again, I think I'd roll out the whole plot of dough and then cut them out with a cookie cutter or a donut cutter. And then they would look a lot nicer presentation-wise. As soon as these are done, we'll move on to decorating. All right, we'll take the last two out of the hot oil. Put this one over. Looks more like a cruller than a donut, but it will still taste super yummy. And I put them on a wire pan over top of a cookie sheet, so I won't get a bunch of grease on my counter, but they won't, and the donuts won't be sitting in a bunch of grease. So I can turn my fryer off now. The nice thing about these little fryers is they have a safety release on the back, so the clip that connects them to power is actually magnetic. So if you have small children and they're running around the house and they happen to trip over the cord, they're not going to send boiling oil over your countertop. The back, it'll just disconnect and everybody will be fine. All right, on to decorating. All right, now we're going to decorate. I have some rainbow sprinkles. I have some micro mini chocolate chips. I have some pink crunchies and some sanding sugar. There's also things like icing sugar or donut sugar. The difference between icing sugar and donut sugar is if you have a really hot donut and you stick it in icing sugar, the icing sugar will melt and disappear. If you have a really hot donut and you stick it in donut sugar, the sugar will stay nice and white. But we're going to start with the ganache we made yesterday with the ruby chocolate. And we're going to dip the donut in that. And then our sprinkles. And then we'll turn it over onto another tray to cool. Okay, so dip, choose your topping. You could also put these on by hand individually if you wanted, say with the crunchies, if you wanted to individually put them on. But, you know, in the interest of efficiency, I will just dip my donuts in the buckets. So, I did make Tony taste test while we were frying donuts, and he assures me that they don't taste all that bad, which is high praise. So, from Tony anyhow. So there you go. The donut recipe is a little vague, and you know, we will probably rework it a few more times to try and make prettier donuts. But all in all, donut recipe hit. See you next time.